What if I told you that the most powerful medicine cabinet in South Africa was never inside a pharmacy? It was never behind a counter, never locked inside a government clinic, never attached to a prescription you had to beg a doctor to write. It was outside. Right outside your door, growing in your garden, climbing your fence, pushing up through the cracks in your yard, rooted in the same African soil where your grandparents were born. And here is the part that should stop you cold. God put it there on purpose. Scripture tells us in Ezekiel 47 verse 12 that the leaves of these trees are for healing, not some of the leaves, not the ones sold in fancy health shops in Santon, all of them, the ones growing wild in the veld, the ones your go-go boiled in a pot on a wood fire, while the rest of the family didn't even ask why. She didn't need a university degree to know what worked. She had something better than a degree. She had knowledge passed down through generations, through blood, through survival. And today, science is finally catching up. Stick around, because what you are about to hear will change the way you look at your own backyard forever. Let us be honest about something that most people in this country feel, but nobody on television ever says out loud. The healthcare system was not designed with you in mind. You know this. You have felt it. You have sat in those clinic queues since before sunrise, taken a number, waited 4 hours, and walked out with the same generic pill for the 4th time in a row. And the pills are expensive, and the side effects are real. And the chronic conditions, the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the joint pain, the chest problems, they keep coming back because the pills are treating the symptoms, not the root. Meanwhile, your great-grandmother raised 10 children in a township or a rural homestead without a single prescription pad. She knew which plant to boil for a fever. She knew which leaf to press against a wound. She knew which root to steep in water for a chest that wouldn't clear. That knowledge was not superstition. It was not witchcraft. It was medicine, African medicine. And it worked. Not because people were desperate and had no choice. It worked because God designed these plants with specific compounds that target specific problems in the human body. And your ancestors understood this long before any laboratory confirmed it. Now here is what makes this even more remarkable. We are not talking about plants from somewhere else. We are not talking about herbs that have to be shipped from China or Germany or America in a little brown bottle with a foreign label and a price that makes your eyes water. We are talking about plants that belong here. Plants that are native to this soil, to this climate, to this country. Rooibos growing wild in the Cederberg Mountains. Aloe Ferox standing tall in the Eastern Cape like it has been guarding the land for centuries. Buchu in the Western Cape, used by the Khoikhoi for thousands of years before the first European ship ever appeared on the horizon. African Wormwood, Umlonyan in Zulu, growing freely in gardens from Limpopo to the Cape Flats. These are not alternative medicines. These are the original medicines. And in the last 20 years, university researchers right here in South Africa, at WITS, at Stellenbosch, at the University of Pretoria, have been running clinical studies that confirm what your grandmother already knew. 20 plants, 20 stories of healing that were always yours. Let us get into them. Before we go any further, I need you to do one thing. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. Every week on this channel, we connect the ancient healing wisdom of our African ancestors with the science that proves it was right all along. This is knowledge your family needs. Knowledge that can keep your children healthy, save you money you do not have to spend, and restore something that was taken from too many of us for too long. If you have someone at home dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes, joint pain, or constant chest problems, this video was made for them. Share it before you even finish watching. Now let us get into the 20 plants God placed in your backyard. Plant number 1 is Aloe Ferox. And if you grew up in South Africa, you have seen this plant your whole life. That tall, thick-leafed sentinel standing in the veld, arms spread wide, burning orange flowers pointing at the sky like candles. Your grandparents knew exactly what that plant was. They called it the bitter aloe. They cut those thick leaves and used the gel on burns, on wounds, on skin infections, on eye problems. They took the dark, bitter sap for the stomach, for constipation, for cleansing the blood. And they were right to do so. Because Aloe Ferox is not just any aloe. It is not the thin supermarket aloe vera that gets watered down and sold in a plastic bottle with a foreign label. Aloe Ferox is native to South Africa. It grows in the Eastern Cape in the Free State in KwaZulu-Natal. It is ours. The San people depicted it in rock paintings over 250 years ago, which means that long before any colonist arrived on this soil, our people already understood the healing power of this plant, not as decoration, not as folklore, as medicine. The same medicine that university laboratories are now confirming in peer-reviewed journals. Here is what the science shows. Researchers have confirmed that Aloe Ferox contains over 130 active medicinal compounds, including anti-inflammatory agents, antimicrobial compounds, antioxidants, antiviral properties, and substances that support wound healing and tissue repair. A clinical study published in the journal PMC found that Aloe Ferox supplementation in obese patients produced a significant reduction in blood sugar levels, LDL cholesterol, and body weight. That is the same plant your grandmother had growing in the yard. Researchers at South African universities have confirmed its effectiveness against bacterial and fungal infections, including some strains that are resistant to conventional antibiotics. The gel heals burns and wounds. The bitter latex, what we call aloe bitters, supports digestion and has been shown to have genuine anti-cancer and immune-modulating properties. And here is something most people do not know. South Africa is the largest exporter of wild-harvested Aloe Ferox extract in the entire world. We export it to 24 countries. The rest of the world is buying our healing plant and feeding it back to us in expensive capsules. Meanwhile, the plant itself is growing free in your province right now. For burns and skin problems, split a fresh leaf and apply the cool gel directly. For digestive issues, a small amount of properly prepared aloe bitters has been used for generations. This is not superstition. This is our medicine. Confirmed, documented ours. Plant number 2 is Rooibos, and this one is going to surprise you because most people think of Rooibos as just a nice cup of tea. Something you drink at night when you cannot sleep, or give to a baby with a sore tummy. But what if I told you that Rooibos is one of the most scientifically studied anti-inflammatory and heart-protecting substances ever found in a plant, and that it grows nowhere else on Earth except South Africa? Nowhere. Not in Europe. Not in North America. Not in Asia. Only here, in the Cederberg Mountains of the Western Cape, in the Fynbos, in the same soil where the Khoikhoi people brewed this tea for centuries before any scientist ever heard of it. The name in Afrikaans means red bush, and that reddish color is your first clue that something powerful is happening inside this plant. When you brew it and the water turns that deep amber red, you are watching antioxidants, polyphenols, and anti-inflammatory compounds releasing into your cup. The Khoikhoi indigenous people used Rooibos for colic in babies, for allergies, for asthma, for skin conditions, not because it tasted good, because it worked. And now researchers at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology and Stellenbosch University have run the clinical trials to prove why. Rooibos is the only known natural source in the world of an antioxidant called aspalathin. Nowhere else on Earth. Only in this plant, growing in this country. Researchers from Stellenbosch University have shown that aspalathin improves glucose uptake and insulin secretion, which means Rooibos is directly targeting the biological mechanisms that drive type 2 diabetes. South Africa has one of the highest rates of diabetes in the world, and the answer to it may have been growing in the mountains of the Western Cape the whole time. The first ever human clinical trial on Rooibos was conducted at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology on 40 adults with cardiovascular risk factors. The results showed that drinking 6 cups of Rooibos daily for 6 weeks reduced oxidative stress in the blood by approximately 21% and improved cholesterol profiles. 21%. No prescription, no pharmacy. Just the bush your ancestors already knew about. Rooibos is also naturally caffeine-free, which means you can drink it morning, noon, and night. There are no negative side effects on record. It is safe for babies from 6 months old, and it has anti-inflammatory properties that modern research is now showing may protect against liver damage, support the immune system, and even have anti-cancer potential. A cup of Rooibos is not just a cup of tea. It is medicine that God grew in South African soil and gave to the people who have always lived here. Plant number 3, This one has a name in every single language spoken in this country. In Zulu, it is Umhlonyane. In Xhosa, it is Umhlonyane. In Sotho, it is Lengana. In Tswana, it is Lengana. In Afrikaans, it is wild eels. In English, they call it African wormwood. The fact that every language here has its own name for this plant tells you something important. It tells you that every culture on this land, for as long as anyone can remember, has known this plant and used this plant and trusted this plant. That does not happen with something that does not work. That happens with something that has been healing people across generations, across languages, across cultures, across centuries. When Jan van Riebeeck arrived at the Cape in 1652 and started keeping a diary, he wrote about wild eels. He noted that the local people used it for gout, for jaundice, for coughs, for fever. He was writing about a healing tradition that was already ancient. Artemisia afra is a soft, silver-grey aromatic shrub that grows throughout South Africa, from the Cederberg Mountains all the way to Ethiopia. You can smell it before you see it. That strong, clean, slightly bitter fragrance is the smell of healing compounds releasing into the air. Umhlonyane has been used by South Africans for coughs, colds, flu, fever, headaches, earache, stomach problems, intestinal parasites, arthritis and malaria. The way it is prepared depends on the problem. For chest and nasal congestion, the most common traditional practice is to press fresh leaves directly into the nostrils to clear blocked passages instantly. For fever and flu, a strong infusion is brewed from the leaves, sweetened with honey, and drunk as a tea. For joint pain and arthritis, the warmed leaves are pressed as a poultice directly onto the swollen area. For earache, drops of the leaf infusion are used in the ear. The roots, stems, and leaves can all be used in different ways, as teas, as enemas, as body washes, as steam inhalations, as lotions. Wilde Aal's brandy, the traditional infusion in brandy, is still made and sold across South Africa today because it has never stopped working. Laboratory studies have confirmed anti-inflammatory, antiseptic, and antidepressant properties. Research projects at South African institutions are actively investigating its effectiveness against tuberculosis, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. The United States government has donated research funding specifically to investigate Umhlonyane against TB, which is the leading cause of death in people living with HIV in this country. They are paying to study what your grandmother already knew. Plant number 4 is Buchu, and this plant has one of the most extraordinary stories of any healing plant in the world, not because of what it does, although what it does is remarkable, but because of what happened to it. Buchu is indigenous to the Cape region of South Africa. It grows as a small aromatic shrub with shiny leaves that smell like blackcurrant. The Khoikhoi and San people used it for thousands of years, for urinary tract infections, for kidney problems, for arthritis, for gout, for stomach ailments, for wounds, for rheumatism, for fever. It was one of the most trusted and most used medicines of the indigenous people of this land. And then the European settlers arrived. And they did something typical. They saw how well it worked. They took it. They exported it to Europe. By the 19th century, Buchu was one of the most popular herbal medicines in both Europe and America, prescribed by Western herbalists for the same bladder, kidney, and urinary problems that the Khoikhoi had always treated with it. The knowledge that was taken from this soil was sold back to the world without acknowledging where it came from. The Khoikhoi healers who developed this medicine over thousands of years received nothing, but the plant itself has never changed. It is still here, and it still works. Here is what Buchu actually does in the body. The active compounds in Buchu leaves, particularly a substance called diosphenol, along with flavonoids including diosmin and rutin, have demonstrated antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, and diuretic properties. When you brew Buchu as a tea and drink it, it stimulates the kidneys to flush the urinary tract, and the antimicrobial compounds help cleanse infection and inflammation throughout the bladder, urethra, and prostate. This is why for generations across South Africa, when someone had a burning urinary infection or kidney pain or prostate swelling, the first thing the older women in the household reached for was Buchu, not a pharmacy, not a prescription. Buchu, traditionally taken as an infusion in water or soaked in brandy as a tincture. The leaves smell like blackcurrant, and the tea has a clean, slightly spicy flavor. Buchu is also used externally, as an antiseptic wash on wounds and infections, and as a compress on bruises and sprains. It is used for gout, for high blood pressure, for stomach ulcers, for IBS. There is a reason the German pharmaceutical industry formally included Buchu in its official reference guide for herbal medicines. There is a reason this plant's aromatic oil is now worth millions of rands in the global fragrance and flavor industry. Because it is powerful. Because it works. And it has been growing on this land, belonging to this land for longer than any colonist has been here to claim it. Those are the first 4 plants on our list of 20, and we are just getting started. Before we go any further, I need to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me this. Which of these 4 plants is already growing in your garden, in your yard, or in your neighborhood right now? Rooibos, Aloe Ferox, Umlonyan, Buchu? Because I want to know how many of you are already sitting on a medicine cabinet without even realizing it. And if you are watching this, and your parents or grandparents used any of these plants, tell us how. Tell us the preparation. Tell us what they said. Because that knowledge belongs to all of us, and the more we share it, the less power anyone has to take it from us again.